what does this mean for pricing? How do you price something like that when AI can work so fast? Hourly rates, day rates no longer make any sense. If you run a business or if you work in a business and if you're not using AI, you are already behind. That doesn't mean you can't catch up.
Today's conversation feels incredibly relevant right now because everywhere we turn, we're hearing about AI. Faster, smarter, more efficient. But here's the question I keep coming back to. In a world where everything can be automated, how do we stay human?
And the risk is that using generic AI, you get generic language and you lose the sense of your culture, which means that you lose the sense of your brand. I wonder whether AI is going to force us to be even more precise and nuanced in the way that we talk about ourselves, because people can replicate what we can do so easily.
I'm joined today by Ben Afia, someone who's spent over 30 years working with some of the biggest brands in the world. And now he's focused on helping businesses navigate exactly this challenge. How to stay distinctive in the age of AI.
I genuinely believe that AI is going to free us up from the drudge work so that we can be more creative, more strategic, and focus on human relationships. Because surely those are the best parts of our job. I can now do work that I couldn't do before. Everybody can now do work that they couldn't do before. You can train a marketing director AI to help you plan and execute your marketing, and you need no experience. We can all now do things that we couldn't do at all before. I just find that mind-blowing.
Welcome back to Beyond the Numbers. I'm Bev Wakefield, and this is the podcast where we break down the numbers in a way that actually makes sense and helps you build a business that supports your life and not the other way around. Ben, thank you ever so much for being here today.
Pleasure's all mine.
I would absolutely love to hear how you started, because you've had an incredible journey. What's shaped your journey and where did it start?
I think I always wanted a business.
Yeah, okay.
I was aware of this at school. I think I was 15 or 16 and with a mate, we bought, do you remember Amway International, like door-to-door sales back in the day? We bought the kit. It didn't sell a thing.
Okay.
I can't remember why. So I knew I always wanted a business, and I had a lot of jobs before I even ended up going to university. So I kind of worked in quite a lot of situations. Randomly, I did a degree in archaeology, which is really useful for AI.
Business and AI.
Yeah. But actually, I sort of settled on marketing. But with all the jobs that I applied for after university, I actually started in sales. So I started on the road for Whitbread Beer Company, which wasn't quite where I wanted to be, but brilliant training.
Yeah.
And after a couple of years, I managed to move over into marketing through a range of roles, moved around quite a lot in my early career. But the formative bits were really landing at Evershed Solicitors, where I was marketing manager for the East Midlands, and then on to Boots the Chemist, where I worked in brand, and I looked after specifically the tone of voice and was helping marketers to get the most out of agencies. So it was looking after the workflow, improving the process, and helping marketers give good briefs and work with creatives to get good results. So I almost got into kind of marketing ops, if you like at an early stage. And that was quite a long time ago. So actually 21 years ago, Boots made me redundant.
Okay.
I went freelance as a copywriter, specialising in brand tone of voice.
Yeah.
And the very
Probably
short...
before it was a real big thing as well then.
That was when it was just emerging. So it was literally just emerging as an idea. So having always wanted a business, it was a real stroke of luck, because English was always my strongest subject at school, which I'd kind of forgotten. I ended up managing writing, which, lent on my skills. So when Boots made me redundant, I thought I was going to be there for life. I was absolutely gutted to end up leaving, but I thought I can do this. So I started as a freelance copywriter, and tone of voice, as you say, was just emerging as an idea. So business picked up really, really fast.
Oh, wow.
You could count on one hand the number of people who had in-house experience of doing this. We'd been out and we'd met people at Lloyd's, at Orange at the time, handful of other. I mean, there were really a small number of people who had done anything on this in-house, and I was one of those people. So I picked up work incredibly quickly, and because language is very much about the culture, it then became very much about linking the brand strategy with change through the organisation. Because tone of voice is, you don't have a tone of voice really unless everybody's using it.
Okay. Sure.
So that's not just your comms people or your marketing people. It's also all the way through customer service. It's through product teams, even into accountancy and legal teams, dare I say, and HR. HR people, I think, really,
Even more importantly,
really
maybe.
took to it.
Yeah.
So it very much became about change and about the belief, the values in the organisation. And this is where I started to settle on this kind of idea that actually I wanted to make business more human. The frustration I was feeling was that organisations can be quite corporate and they use jargon and business speak, and it gets in the way of the relationship that we build with our customers and with our people. And that's where this idea of being more human in business really started to emerge.
I think there's a huge thing with that, isn't there? I think a lot of people stand behind jargon. Perhaps they've been perceived. I can always remember a marketing person telling me that you needed to know all the answers and to be very, say the right words, that kind of thing. But again, that's not being authentic then, is it? Or it's not kind of actually resonating with someone. So actually that tone of voice and being human.
Totally. I mean, the big disconnect that I've felt is, so a lot of my work's been with larger businesses.
Yes.
And so what tends to happen is they will work with a fancy brand strategy agency and they'll come up with a fancy idea for the advertising. But those agencies aren't necessarily thinking about how do people on the front line understand it and relate to it. But actually what shapes your experience as a customer is what happens when you pick up the phone or what happens in those emails and those service emails and when you're on web chat. Those are the interactions for a service brand that really build your understanding of what a customer stands for, the position they take in your mind. And so, you can do the advertising fine, but if it's not consistent with what happens in customer service, then you don't have a coherent brand. That's where the inhumanity comes in. You can make the promise, but if you don't deliver, it just feels corporate. And that's why people don't like big companies.
And I was just about to say, so you've worked with incredibly big companies doing this, and I imagine that's really challenging, being able to get the tone of voice from what perhaps they're perceiving as a marketing perspective to filter all the way through.
And this is why I come back to the idea of culture. So I use an approach called appreciative inquiry, which is about getting people telling stories of times that have been at their best at work. So it comes from positive psychology, and the general idea is that if you create something and try and force people to do something, they'll tend to push back, they'll tend to resist. So you can't really make change happen. And what I've noticed is when I'm training people in customer service and even in marketing teams, if they don't believe in the brand, if they don't believe in the story, they won't change. They won't adopt it. They just won't do anything with it. They'll resist. So the way through that is to hear stories about times people are at their best within the organisation. And interestingly, those stories are never about when people have done things on their own. They're always about when they've worked effectively as a team, when they've had each other's back, when they've looked after customers really well because they've worked coherently internally as a team between teams. Those are the stories that people find most fulfilling. So when you get people telling those stories, you start latching onto the sorts of words that they're using. And it's those individual word choices that, when you start piecing them together, give you a real rich picture of the brand, the values and the personality. And you only get to that when you really get under the skin of it. And so I don't want to fast forward just yet, but when we start thinking about AI, if you use generic AI, you're going to lose those nuanced words. So the risk is that you actually lose your culture, you lose the brand personality by using generic AI. So that's the thing that I'm really excited about now, is how can we actually use AI to capture the culture?
I love that. Let's just dive straight into that, because I think that's incredible in terms of, and I think as we've opened, AI is being able to create this platform, isn't it, where we're almost able to compete quicker based on capabilities, advancements, that kind of thing. But actually, it's the risk of all sounding the same. We all know the common bits to look out for on a LinkedIn post that's been delivered by AI and perhaps it hasn't. And I think you have a quote as well in terms of people don't trust that as much then.
No, they don't. No, it's really interesting. So there has been research, and there's more popping up, about how people relate to AI content. So there was a study that I learned about on a podcast back in October last year. An academic was talking about research into AI art, AI writing, and I think it was poetry maybe. and AI music. And when researchers are testing AI versus human version, what's really interesting is that quite often the AI versions are liked more by humans.
Yes.
But when they're told that it's AI, they
Yes.
immediately don't like it.
This happened outside the Oasis concert, didn't it? I think.
Did it?
Yeah, I think they someone
Yeah.
came up with an AI song and said, "This is Oasis's new song. What do you think?" Yes, that was incredible. We absolutely love it. And then it's AI generated. Oh, I'd hate it.
Now, this academic actually feels that that's going to be a moment in time, and
Okay.
we will get used to it, and
Yeah.
it will become less of a thing. But it's a really crucial issue for brands at the moment, because if you're using AI to produce content, to write your customer service letters, your marketing, your advertising, if people can sense that it's AI, at the moment they're not going to like it. So it's a very careful balance for marketing, for brand leaders. But as you say, there's actually a really exciting possibility. And that's what's getting me out of bed at the moment. So just to give you an example, I'm currently working with a life science company. They've got a team of 330 or so marketers across the globe. And, if you manage a team of that size, it's quite difficult to get consistency, because you've got different regions. They're in China, they're in the States, they're in Italy, and so on. And so how do you get consistency across all of those markets with the regional variations that you also want to come through? It's actually really quite difficult. And you've got different levels of training within the team as well. So some of them will have been through, discipline marketing training. Some will have joined from different areas. So this is life science. Quite a lot of these marketers come from science. And so they haven't had a marketing training. So how do you raise the bar and get marketing excellence across a large team that's global? Well, AI, I think, gives us that possibility.
Wow.
So what we're creating, we're looking at the entire marketing workflow, from writing a brief through to developing the strategy, to briefing an agent, finding the right agency, or doing some work in-house, doing the research, piecing all the pieces together before you go to a creative team to develop a campaign and develop the content. How do you get the checks and balances in? How do you meet compliance and regulatory standards? How do you do the technical writing? So there are many steps in this workflow for a marketing team. We're creating AI agents for the whole workflow. And the beauty of it is we can build the brand into those agents. So individual marketers don't have to go, hang on, where are the guidelines? I lost that PDF. Where did I file it?
Yeah.
It's in the AI. So the proof of concept that we've built is a marketing brief coach that steps you through, talks you through, coaches you through creating a brief, but it's got the brand inside. So it can ask you, which values are we leaning on here? Or what side of the personality do we want to emphasize? Or which commercial objective does this campaign help us achieve? So it draws on all the background which we can build in, and that makes life much easier for the marketer.
Yes.
And the beauty is, and that frees the marketer's time up to focus on being more strategic, being more creative, the relationships within the team, getting alignment within the organization. That's a big job of the marketer. And then spending time with the agency to really get great creative work.
Isn't that crazy as well? So if you look to for the last 30 years then of working in marketing and behind the kind of the human element of this and tone of voice, the change that's been possible, because AI has been here for a long time. It was playing chess, wasn't it, on the computer games? But especially the LLMs and all that kind of the advancements that we're having now, I guess 30 years ago, we would never have dreamed of having a portal to be able to then go, well, let's actually challenge it and say, does this suit our brand guidelines?
Yeah.
Is this in line with our values?
And what's really interesting, so when I first wrote a tone of voice guide at Boots. So this was about 24 years ago now.
Okay.
So I'm probably giving away my age, but a long, long time ago. And so traditionally what you've done in a brand team or a marketing team is you write guidelines, and they're big PDFs. And, as the internet came through, you were able to build those into platforms that would help you to manage the brand. But when I'm trying to manage tone of voice, I'm giving people specific writing techniques. And so for one, for example, which actually makes most of the difference in writing. So when we're tied up in corporate speak, we tend to be passive rather than active.
Okay.
So we might say, so a passive sentence might be, a letter will be sent.
Yeah.
But you don't know who's sending the letter in that sentence. But if you say, I'll write to you, you've got much more energy. It's clear the relationship between who's writing and the person who's supposed to be reading. That's an active sentence, an active verb. But that's actually quite hard to explain in a training workshop and help people to if people tend towards the passive, it's quite hard to train out because our writing skills are part of our professional identity.
Sure.
And, we learnt it through school, through, if we went to university, through that experience, through the organisations we've worked for the bosses who've edited us over the years. So these are quite tightly held behaviours and they're quite hard to undo. The active passive thing, you can just tell AI to do it.
Yes.
It doesn't always do it. Sometimes I have to tell it
3 times.
there are some passives. What are you doing? Sometimes I shout at it.
Yeah.
But you can build into the guidelines and say, always use active sentences. And that means actually the quality of the writing that comes through is much better, much more consistent. And, the job of a marketer often is writing, but not all marketers are confident with writing. A lot of people are not confident with their writing, I tend to find. So AI actually, I think, can make it easier.
Yes.
And I know people have concerns about it. They're worried that it can lose authenticity. And that is something that's absolutely on my mind. Just as I was coming here today, I was listening to an article about the nuances of why AI can't write like you.
Okay.
And the essence of the argument is that you have little quirks in your language, and those quirks change over time. And what AI will tend to do, it's got generic, it's read everything, that it can access. And so it has a general sense of language, but it doesn't have your quirks.
Yes.
So how do you bake your quirks in? And the same goes for a brand. How do you get the quirks of a brand into the AI? Well, I've actually managed to do it.
Amazing.
So I've trained the AI on my approach to training tone of voice. And then I gave it my book, The Human Business. Mm-hmm. So it's got 40,000 words of my thinking. And now when I get it to write stuff, it writes just like me. To the extent, right? I probably shouldn't confess to this, but... So I wrote an article. I worked with my Claude writer before Christmas. I put this article in my newsletter, trying to get this this idea down about how using generic AI is likely to damage your brand and damage your culture. Mm-hmm. And I didn't just take what AI. I never just take what AI spits out ever. No. But it was damn good. Mm. And after 2 or 3 rounds of edits, careful edits, and I had my team edit as well, so I work amongst the team, I put it in my newsletter, and one of my copywriters who worked with me back at Boots, she was at one of the big London advertising agencies, so it must be 23, 24 years ago, and she's worked freelance with me on and off ever since. And she dropped me an email and said, Ben, this is the best thing you've ever written. Such a coherent argument, really powerful. I had to drop her an email back and say, yeah, I did it with AI.
Yeah, but that's, like you saying, this is empowering you to perhaps produce your best work because you're not having to think about the passive v active. You're not having to think about the other elements within this. So you can actually then create something even greater.
And you know what it does really well? So one of the problems we have when we're writing to an audience is we forget that the audience is there. Steven Pinker calls this the curse of knowledge. We know so much that it's actually quite hard to pitch our language at the level of the person that we're speaking to, that we're trying to communicate with. So I probably speak in marketing speak, you speak in accountancy speak. It's very hard to get out of it because these are shortcuts and terminology that are common in our communities and in our businesses and with our clients, but actually not everybody understands them.
No.
What AI does is it kind of filters for that because it can have the perspective of your audience in mind, and it doesn't have all of that knowledge. It's not holding on tightly.
It's our bias, it's our beliefs, it's that, I guess, that element.
We hold
on
to it emotionally, and AI doesn't have that emotion. So actually, I'm finding for some things it writes better than me.
That's really interesting, and quite nice as someone who's done copywriting to feel comfortable saying that as well, because I know there's been the whole element of, we're going to lose all of our jobs to AI.
Yeah.
But you've almost showcased how you can elevate your job.
I don't think AI is going to take a lot of jobs anytime soon. Now, there are companies and there are leaders who are thinking about how AI is going to change jobs, certainly, and thinking about and there are companies who've let people go and said that AI is going to, going to take over, and then they've had to hire people back.
Well, there was an accountancy firm. There was an accountancy firm that was set up that said they were purely automated, and they weren't actually automated. They were actually offshoring the work because the automation couldn't quite get there, and it did go bust because they had to keep a payroll, which they weren't pricing into the costing.
And the thing is, I mean, especially for marketing, which is my area, I think we still need the marketers, because the job of a marketer is not just to create marketing, to create campaigns. The job of a marketer is to understand what the business needs, what is trying to achieve, and then connect that objective with something that connects with customers. It's a bit like a lawyer. You could say, well, AI can now, Claude has not long released its legal plugin and can now do contract reviews and write contracts brilliantly. But the job of a lawyer is not just writing contracts.
No,
the job of a lawyer is managing risk and helping a leadership team to understand the risk they're getting into, to interpret that risk. So actually the writing bit is only one part of that job. I think it's the same for a marketer. The marketer's job is to understand customers, consumers, and match the objectives of the audience with those customers so that business occurs. And I think we're going to still need marketers to do that. We're going to need them in a slightly different configuration. We're going to need more creativity and more strategy, because quite a lot of marketing is admin and project
That's the interesting
management.
bit though, isn't it?
It's the best bit.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And I guess, what are businesses getting wrong with AI at the moment? What's going wrong?
There's one fundamental thing, which is, so I've got I organise a monthly drinks pub night for some chaps on my street. This is my kind of dementia prevention strategy. So I'm just nurturing my street grouping so that when I'm old, we'll all go down to the pub together. Yeah. So anyway, so we meet up once a month, and there's some guys at a range of companies, and they're all being given Microsoft Copilot licenses. So I'm mostly working. I do my work actually in Claude and Gemini and ChatGPT and Perplexity. But for my corporate work, it has to be Copilot because everybody's in Microsoft. So it's fine. Just work within that. So everyone's been given Copilot licenses. Almost nobody's been given any training. And it's not even just getting some training, because the way that we work with AI is different. It's not like... So when you learn Excel, which I'm imagining is some time ago...
Yes.
But it's like one of the first things that you're going to learn as an accountant, surely. So if you learn how to use Excel and you learn how to create formulas, for example, the thing with an Excel formula is when you give it an input, you know what to expect of the output.
Yes.
It's going to do a calculation in the same way every single time. And that's called deterministic software. AI is non-deterministic. So you can give the same input, but you'll get a slightly different output.
Yes.
And this is just the nature of large language models. And you can give it the same prompt, you can use the same model, but a different time of day, and get a different result.
It does this with images as well, doesn't it?
It
It
does.
can't produce the same image twice.
That's right. And that is just the way that the models work. And so what tends to happen, so one of the big issues is that companies are delegating AI to the CTO, to the tech team, and looking at it as a tech issue, tech problem.
Yeah.
But it's not really a tech problem. The tech's actually quite easy. It's just a chat. You just type stuff and it will do things. There's not really that much to learn in terms of using the software. There's a lot to learn about how you behave with it and how you're going to work with it and cajole it. So the way I think about it is it's more like working with a human.
Yes, okay.
And an experienced human that's got all of the world's knowledge, but doesn't really know your business that well. And so for marketers, when I'm thinking about training marketers, I'm thinking, well, what context does a marketer have? So most marketers work with creative agencies. And so I say, well, imagine that, AI is like working with a creative agency. What would you do when you're working with an agency in order to get the best work? So a seasoned marketer, they'll write a good brief. What goes into a brief? Clear objectives, an idea of the audience. They would be clear about the output they're trying to create. They would give some parameters. They'd give background information. They'd also give a load of files. So they might give the brand guidelines. There might be some background documents, the annual report. So they'll assemble a lot of, in what in AI terms is called context. And this is the bit that people tend to be missing. They're just prompting and using it like chat, like Google search.
Yeah.
And then when they don't quite get what they expect out of it, they're a bit disappointed. So the key...
It's so important.
Yeah. So the key is giving it a good brief and giving it lots of files. So giving it clear instructions, telling it what you want it to do, the role that you want it to play, and assembling the background information that it needs to have. But it's even more than that. So you brief your agency, but then what do? You then need to stay on hand because they're going to come back with questions. So if again, a seasoned marketer will give an initial brief and then say, let's have a call in a couple of days and let's go over your questions, because things will have come up as you've got into your research. So they're on hand and they're responding to questions and guiding through the project, and they stay on hand. They don't just disappear. They stay there. And when each version comes through, or any version of questions comes through, they're there and they go through very carefully. So one of the things that I'm finding myself doing is I'm getting startling results out of Claude Cowork in particular. It's just staggering what it can do. And it'll do it in 10, 15 minutes, quite a large piece of work. But I then spend 2 hours going through it line by line, checking.
And it's that human part that's so important.
Totally.
Not just reliant on the output of it.
Yeah. And applying judgment. So this is one of the key skills. And actually, this is one of the things that I am concerned about. So I'm enjoying using AI and I'm enjoying the output, but I've had 30 years of working experience and I've learnt the hard way. I've done the writing and I've had clients look at it and go, no, that's shit.
Yeah.
Or I've worked with editors who've really, got the red pen out. So I've gone through that painful experience of learning how to write well. When I think about my kids, so my son Ollie is working in cybersecurity now, just graduated. But my daughter is in her second year at university, just coming to the end of second year at university, doing philosophy. So she is learning to write, but when she hits the job market, how is she going to learn those basic skills that I learned through painful trial and error? So that is a worry. How do I get Lottie to the point where she has similar judgment to me to know what is right, to know whether the AI, because AI can produce very polished results that appear correct.
Yes.
And they can hide gremlins, hallucinations and little challenges. Now, I don't find that happens because I give it a very clear brief, but it's quite, if you miss steps, you can produce things that aren't right. And
absolutely.
I think Deloitte came a cropper from producing a very expensive research report, didn't they, recently, with using AI. I won't go into more, I don't have more detail on it, but
it's true. I mean,
it's a huge risk.
And we're having the questions, instead of it just being Dave down the pub now, it's also ChatGPT says this. And like you say, because the prompt isn't so detailed or they haven't got the knowledge of the tax legislation or something like that to spot that it's done something wrong. Yes. And I guess that's and I'm not just kind of trying to go, that's the reason you need it. Eventually, we probably won't need accountants. There will be the ability to do that. It's the strategic side again. Yeah. But it's that then of being able to analyse into it more too, and also have that human approach with it.
So the risk there. So the way I kind of, when I'm training, I kind of present my AI as a team. And so I've created a number of personas, sort of specific agents that will help me with certain tasks. Okay. They don't go away and do the tasks on their own. They'll do a load of work for me to review and we go back and forth. So I have a chief marketing officer, and I have a chief legal officer, and I have a sales director. I also have a chief finance officer.
Wonderful.
I also have a financial coach who is not obviously qualified to give me financial advice, but I've given it all of the context of my background. So when I've worked with, say, financial advisors in the past, I'm familiar with the process. So I've assembled all the background stuff that a qualified financial advisor would go through, and I've given it to AI, and I've trained it to work in a way that I want to train to help me reach my retirement goals. Yep. The problem is, do I have the judgment on, say, tax issues to know whether the results are correct?
Yes, okay.
So I can produce stuff using the agent that I've built.
But then you want someone to
But do I know whether it's... So I will always use a human. I'll always go to a human to
But that helps
verify.
Still, though, because you've got to the point of, actually, is this now right? Is there anything else I need to consider?
It's helped me to do some thinking.
Yeah.
And do some pulling and pushing and scenario planning before then going to a human for the time-consuming. So it does the time-consuming bit. I genuinely believe that AI is going to free us up from the drudge work so that we can be more creative, more strategic, and focus on human relationships. Because surely those are the best parts of our job. Unless we don't like talking to people, and there are people who don't like talking to people. Of course.
And I'm sure there's equally some roles there to help do the kind of the background element there. This is something I keep coming back to, though, is all of our ability. So we all start getting the prompts better. We all start going, right, I've got some really detailed briefs, and throughout all different industries. So you could be looking at marketing, or you could be looking at the accountancy industry. Is there a risk that we all start looking the same?
Yes, definitely. Yeah. And so that comes back to what we were talking about how do we approach this as marketers? So there are probably two issues. So I talked about culture and I've talked about brand. So you might say that the culture is maybe your kind of HR, your kind of people team domain. And the brand bit you might think of as like your marketing and brand team domain. But they intersect and they relate to each other very closely. And the risk is that using generic AI, you get generic language and you lose the sense of your culture, which means that you lose the sense of your brand. So for me, it's about understanding what those stand for and baking them into the AI. So in the olden days, we create a PDF, you'd write guidelines. You'd define your culture in the values, behavior frameworks, in storytelling. You define the brand, you draw on those elements, and then you build up on the brand personality. So you're kind of creating that character. So now what I'm doing is I'm building that into the AI. So I've done that for my AI. So my CMO knows my brand and it knows my tone of voice. I have a writer based on an ebook I wrote years ago based on some training I delivered for Aviva called Cut the Crap, How to Write So People Buy.
Nice.
And so I have my Cut the Crap writer and that has my tone of voice. It's got my tone rules so it can reproduce them consistently. So that's what I'm now creating for brand teams so that a whole team of marketers can represent the brand faithfully. That's the exciting bit.
That is really exciting. And I'm also thinking about how this applies to a business owner again, that perhaps they don't have a marketing team and they don't have the other branding specialist, and they probably use a marketing that they outsource. But a lot of this, like the culture pieces here, the leadership ones there, and then I'm juggling my HR and everything else, because you hold so many tassels. And you've done this as well, haven't you, in terms of you wear so many different hats.
Absolutely.
And whilst AI at the moment, I'm kind of going, it makes it feel like we can get through so much more and we could perhaps carry those hats. I guess that carries a risk as well.
Yeah, it does. So kind of informally, I'm coaching quite a few small businesses, mates, basically. So a friend of mine runs a lawn care business, and we've been talking at the pub over a number of months, and he's kind of getting into the idea and thinking, how can you use AI? And we chat over it loosely. So we've just done a trade. I like doing trades with business friends, and so we've done a trade. He's going to sort my lawn out this year.
Nice.
And I've kind of done an AI kind of opportunity report for him. And so for him, my advice is, you've got stuff that. So he's written lawn care advice for many years, which he publishes in kind of local press and Facebook and things like that. So he's done a lot of writing. So the steps are actually relatively straightforward. You gather as much of that writing as you can and put it in a folder, just store it somewhere. And then whatever AI you choose, ask it to interrogate, to review all of that writing and suggest some tone of voice techniques. Analyze my writing and tell me what my tone of voice should be. And then you can review those techniques and it'll listen for you. So it will say things like, well, you use more active sentences than passive, and you tend to use shorter sentences, whatever those quirks might be. And then you can say, great, now turn that into a set of instructions so I can create my own, either a custom GPT if it's ChatGPT, or a project in Claude, or a gem in Gemini. So they all have their different ways of training their own agents to work in the way that you want them to work. So it will write the instructions for you. You don't have to do anything. You just ask it to do it. Then you read that through and check, this sounds like how I want it to write in my style. And then you can start applying that to anything that you want to do. So that's how you can start capturing your brand. You could even take that a step further and say, well, what values does this writing suggest? What behaviors does it suggest? And so my lawn care friend has got a small team around him. He is, getting towards retirement, and he wants to be stepping back a little bit. So he wants to empower his team, but he wants to protect the brand. The essence of it is care for customers. So his belief is, if we care for our customers, they'll keep
using us
buying
every year.
us, and they'll recommend us to their friends. So he wants all of his team to represent those values, and so he can draw that from his writing. Incredible. So he's using AI to write brand guidelines. Now, 5 years ago, he would have had to hire somebody like me to do that for him.
Yes.
He doesn't need me anymore. He can do it himself.
But then I guess he needs you to help him realise that he needs to do the brand guidelines. And I guess the other side of this is how good was, and I'm sure that lawn care gentleman's writing was good anyway, but in terms of whilst you're going to sound unique still, do you want AI to help you evolve that writing and content as well? Or do you just go, no, that's who we've been. We stick with that because is that more trusted by the human?
I think it gives you choices. It gives you choices and you can shape it. So the writing that I get out of AI is a bit more polished.
Yes.
My grammar can be a bit sketchy at times. And often over the years I would have a human. I always work with another writer or an editor. And so, so one of my copywriters over the year, a chap called Pete, who I've worked with for a long time, he'll look at it and go, yeah, it's a bit janky here. And, I'll just want to ease that out because people pause in that sentence. Whereas I think I was having fun with the language.
Yeah, okay.
He's going, but from an audience's perspective, it's actually going to stop them. So AI will smooth out some of those things. So you could say, yes, it's losing some of the character, but also sometimes I just say, switch it up. So if it comes out a bit flat, I just say, switch it up, this is boring. And it comes out completely differently. And it's got more life, more energy, shorter sentences, more bounce, more purpose. So that is a skill, an editing with AI skill that you just have to build up through practice, I think. Yeah, okay. It's something that I'm kind of delivering in my training, but it takes a little while. And that is, so back to a question, you had about what are the big thing that companies are getting wrong. It's thinking it's a tech challenge, not treating it actually as a human behavioral change challenge, and thinking these are habits, these are things that we now need to learn that will take a while to integrate with our behavior. And it's taken me a long time, and I'm constantly learning. And that kind of brings me to one of the things that we really need to be conscious of is, there's one speaker on AI, Ethan Mollick, an academic, and he talks about the jagged frontier of AI development. Yep. And the jagged frontier basically says it's got extremely good at some things and really crap at others. Mm-hmm. So that frontier of capability is really mixed. And this really is something that I urge people that I'm working with to do, is to work with AI enough to be aware of that frontier.
Yeah. So
for example, I'm building Copilot agents for this client, this team of 330 marketers. In the Microsoft ecosystem at the moment, we only have ChatGPT 4.1.
Okay.
And 4.1 isn't even a reasoning model. So you've got the quick, nimble models, and you've got the reasoning models that do deep thinking and take longer. That's where I'm getting the best quality results.
Yes.
But within Copilot, we've only got 4.1. Now, they are talking about bringing Claude in. I keep chucking these names out and I haven't really explained them yet, but Claude's another AI model. I think it's the best at writing. It's got more nuanced tone of voice, and I'm really looking forward to that. But if we're at 4.1 and then they get to, say, 5, ChatGPT 5, well, that is a step change in capability. So within the AI agents that I'm building, what happens when the model changes and I can bring another model in? We then actually need to look at the agent and make sure that it's following the instructions and that the instructions are still appropriate for the way the AI can think.
Yeah, okay, I'm with you. Because of the frontier kind of changing, the fact that actually, as you say, 4.1 isn't reasoning. It's not doing the deep research. 5, what's it? It's 5.1?
We're at 5.4 now, which again
is
another
what's
step
on the top
over 5.3.
at the moment. But again, I guess that doesn't need the same instructions that Chat 4.1 did.
No.
And so I guess it's a constant evolution.
It is. And the models themselves differ. So with ChatGPT, I find you have to be a little bit more specific because it tends to follow by the letter. Whereas Claude understands the sentiment, the meaning of your instructions, and is just more creative about applying them. So I get better results with Claude, even when I give a sketchy brief, than I do with GPT. I've got to be a bit more precise.
Needs the big brief.
Yeah. And so hopefully what's becoming clear is that between different models and different versions of models and different ways of using AI, there's constant evolution. It's moving so quickly. I was talking with another AI consultant just a couple of days ago, and he said the way we're going to be using AI in 6 months' time is probably going to be completely different to the way we're using it now, because the capabilities are moving so quickly. So for us as individuals, that's a challenge to stay on top with. And, we've got the day job. I
was going to say, we've now got an AI hat as well.
Exactly. How on earth when you've got a hectic day job, do you have the time to do that experimenting? I feel for everybody. And at the same time, the way those models are working and the way that organizations are building agents and delivering training has got to be adaptive to the way the AI is changing.
Sure.
So it's a constantly moving feast. You can't just create an academy and say, well, that's it. And we just
we've done that. We've
for the next
ticked
5
that
years.
now. Yeah, that's really interesting, that kind of evolution. Are people going to get left behind then if they're not adopting AI? Is that something that you feel as a business owner in kind of any industry? Is that going to cause people issues?
That's a really good question. And I think about it quite a lot because for the kind of people around me, you know, like my partner, my dad, my brother, I would say for business owners, yes.
Yes.
If you run a business or if you work in a business and if you're not using AI, you are already behind. That doesn't mean you can't catch up by any means because it's still very early days. And that's generally...
That's the beautiful thing with this as well, isn't it? Because like you said, this was a tech issue.
Yeah.
That's where people were going, no, go and just... AI is going to be the CTO's issue in that department.
Yeah.
Whereas actually the technician, or the tech guys haven't had as much time in this either. Whilst automation's been here for a long time.
Yeah.
The actual AI and the LLMs and that kind of thing's very new, and we're
Totally.
all on the same, which is a bit scary as well, because we're all on this level playing field of playing with it and understanding it and... Yeah,
it's a really tricky one. So if I think about my family, if they don't have a specific use case, it's very hard to encourage them to get into it. And my dad's a retired structural engineer, and he uses Grok for chat and he asks questions and things, but he's not really interested beyond that. And why would he be? I mean, what would he use it for? But I do think that if you are in business and in organisations generally, and if any of your work involves writing. So I'm currently working with a CFO buddy, Chief Finance Officer, and we've been talking about AI for a while. I've been trying to get him into it and saying, you really need to be getting on this. And and we've been having some kind of sessions in the last few weeks. Now, he's really now gone deep on AI and he's really getting some use out of it. But one of the problems is that for financial modelling, it's actually not as good as it needs to be yet. So if a lot of your work is spreadsheet work, and Claude now has a spreadsheet plugin. And actually last night, Claude created a P&L for a project in infinite detail. I mean, it's just staggering. It's so detailed, I haven't even had time to go through it with a fine-tooth comb yet, which is something I need to do. Looking at team and day rates and all of this sort of thing, mapping that out. And it did it in seconds. Wow. But it needs really fine-tuned checking. And so for my CFO buddy, I think it's not quite there yet, but within 3 months it could be, within 6 months it could be.
And I think it's even perhaps taken some of the heavy lifting, so it might have got something to 80%.
Yeah. Okay, so the way I kind of explain it to people is some of the things that I'm getting out of it for kind of my workflow. So I started a project at the beginning of the year, so in January, and I can't remember if Claude Cowork had come out at the time, but that's where I'm really getting a lot of power from. So I've been marketing for 30 years. I've been running my business for 21 years. So I have been taking briefs from people and understanding what clients need for a long, long time. So I know the right questions to ask. I know what I'm looking for. I understand the nuances I'm looking for. I'm not just relying on the AI. But what I can do now is I can take a briefing, and let's say we have an hour on Teams, and I can transcribe the call. That transcript will capture so much more depth and nuance than I can type in that meeting, because I can't type that fast. So I can take the transcript, and then I have my kind of AI consultancy agent. So that agent will then turn that transcript into the brief, and it did. So we've got an hour's meeting. I put it into the AI, and it's basically written the brief. Now, when I first started out, I would try and get my clients to write the brief, because writing briefs is kind of tedious and kind of boring, and I couldn't be bothered.
Yeah. Or it would take you how long?
It would take me hours.
Yeah.
Hours, if not days, because it's some hard thinking. When you say, well, what are your objectives? Well, actually, if you haven't really thought it through, what are the objectives? That's actually really difficult for people to home in on. What do you want out of life?
Yeah.
These can be endless answers, questions. The AI then spent 10 minutes writing the brief from the transcript. I then spent 2 hours working through it with a fine tooth comb am I happy with this? Hammer this? Has it missed anything? And I go back to, I did make some notes and I'm checking, did it get that? Yes, it got that. No, it didn't get that in. So I don't leave it to run on its own,
No.
but it's taken the heavy lifting. And I sent that the next morning and said, here's your brief. Does this fit your understanding of what we discussed? They say, yes, great. What's the next step? I'm like, well, now I need to do a project plan. So this is going to be a year. In fact, this program was looking like a year. It's now going to be more like 2 to 3 years. So anyway, so the first year, I need a project plan. Now, previously, I would have hired a project manager. I might have spent £600 a day on a project manager, and they might have taken 2 or 3 days to go through all of the background and build me a detailed project plan. The project director agent that I've created did that in about 20 minutes. I then spent about 4 hours going through it with a fine-tooth comb, just checking, making sure I'm happy. Do the timelines add up? Am I prepared to commit to the work that I've proposed here? Because I'm going to have to deliver the work with my team.
Yeah.
So I go through it detail. But by the end of that, the second day, by the end of the second day, I'm ready to send that. So I send that evening, or the following morning once I've given it a fresh pair of eyes. Check in with my client. How's the project plan looking? Does this feel good? Yeah, that's good. Okay, so what's next? So the next step is I'm going, I need to build a proof of concept AI agent, the first one. This was the marketing briefing one that I mentioned earlier. How am I going to do that? I'm not a Copilot engineer. I'm not a software developer. But I've created a Copilot engineer agent.
Yep.
So the way I do that is I've asked the AI to go out and research the latest thinking in developing Copilot agents. What are the skills? What are the techniques? What's the understanding of what works and what doesn't work? And so I've created my own set of instructions. I've built my agent, given it context. So I go, right, review the whole project, the project plan, the brief, and create the technical spec for me. Mm-hmm. Again, I would have had to go and hire a Copilot engineer, and they don't exist freelance because they're all in-house at the moment. It's still new, can't find them. And it wrote a technical specification for this AI build. Now, I checked through that, and it's telling me things like we're going to use, we would prefer to use Claude because it's got more nuanced tone of voice, but actually we're going to have to stick with GPT for the moment because it's within Microsoft's enterprise protection. So it goes through all of these decisions. Are we going to use SharePoint, OneDrive? What are all the decisions about how you're going to physically set this agent up? Now, I do know enough because I've spent the last year training in it. Mm-hmm. I know what I'm looking for. So I can review that and go, this is really good.
Yes.
So the next morning, I send that over to my client. So this is 3 days.
That's incredible,
from
isn't it?
brief. I've sent 3 pieces of fairly substantial work, all heavily checked. Here's the technical architecture. This is what I'm proposing. You don't need to read that detail, but IT might want to have a look at it, or your compliance guys might want to look at it. On this project, I'm working with a top 1% global Microsoft partner because I'm not a Copilot engineer and I want to make sure I get this right first time. Mm-hmm. So I went to the Microsoft partner, I sent them the technical architecture, and they came back and said, Ben, we don't know why you think you need us.
Okay.
Because this is really good.
Yeah, okay.
The reason I need them is reassurance, but the AI's taught me how to do it. So I can now do work that I couldn't do before. Everybody can now do work that they couldn't do before. As an accountant, you've had to market your own business, but let's say you were starting out and you'd never done any marketing. You can train a marketing director AI to help you plan and execute your marketing, and you need no experience. You might want to get a marketing friend to check it, but you can now do things. We can all now do things that we couldn't do at all before. I just find that mind-blowing.
It is, but it needs, and like you say, I guess the warning with all this is not to just throw the basics in. It's not to, you've got to invest to understand it.
It takes time to set up. You have to, if you spend the time to set up, you can get staggering results, amazing quality, the depth of thinking. You'll love it. So so this week I've been putting a more detailed proposal together for a project, for this 2-3 year project. But I'm worried about risk.
Yes.
And what I'm letting myself in for. So I've got a legal AI agent to do a legal review. I also have a human lawyer looking at it. Mm-hmm. Don't worry. But then I thought, hang on, how can I look at risk from all sorts of different angles? So I actually didn't create an agent. I just said to Claude, I want you to look at the project plan, the brief, the project plan, the technical architecture, and review it from the C-suite's perspective. So be the CEO, be the CFO, be the HR director, be the legal director, be the marketing director, and look at it from each of those angles and tell me where you think my risks might lie. You know, it's like having a coach on hand all the time, always on, day in, day out.
And I think what I found incredible about your scenario that you've just said, where you're working with a client, something that perhaps would have taken 3+ weeks, maybe even longer. And by the time that you've got to wait for someone who's a specialist in that area, you're creating, and I think it's coming back to the human, the human element, that impact of being able to condense that into 3 days.
Well, and the quality is just extraordinary. So I did a pilot project last year with an engineering consultancy, and just one bit, so similar process, but I'm thinking about the kind of positioning. So how do they want their customers to think about them is the marketing term for it, is positioning. What's the position that you're going to take in their minds? Now, you want to explore different ideas. It depends on what different customers need at different times. And that's, quite heavy thinking work. Now, normally, and I was thinking I might have quoted 4 days to do that work. But it wouldn't have taken 4 days. It would have taken 2 weeks because I would have procrastinated for a week.
Yeah, sure.
By the time I'd have got down to it, I would start panicking because my deadline's looming. I'd might have spent 4 days, and then I would have got one of my team to review it for me, and I'd been back and forth. So 4 days of work that would have been 2 weeks, did in about 4 hours. Producing the first draft, reworking it, just making sure the positioning areas are correct. Presenting that to my client, getting their feedback, refining it, a couple more back and forth so that we got there so fast it was untrue. And then, so what does this mean for pricing? How do you price something like that when AI can work so fast?
Yes.
Hourly rates, day rates no longer make any sense.
No.
You have to go for what value are you creating?
We've been talking about value-based pricing for such a long time, and I think you're right. It's almost giving you that. I think it's also causing an issue as well, because you're going, okay, yes, I can see what the value in this is, and so I can price accordingly. But also someone else could go and build all this and spend this time, and okay, yes, you've got X number of years experience behind it that can significantly helps, obviously. But it does then make you go, well, how do I price now if I can pop it into Claude and create a beautiful report?
And I think this comes back to where we started in a sense, who am I as a business? What's my brand? What makes me special? And so I think that when we think about positioning ourselves as a business, we tend to focus on the kind of functional benefits that we deliver. But actually the true heart of branding is understanding what we believe in, that a customer might also believe in.
Yeah, it's a kind of Simon Sinek side in terms of the why and the 3 golden circle.
And so I wonder, this is a really interesting question, I wonder whether AI is going to force us to be even more precise and nuanced in the way that we talk about ourselves, because people can replicate what we can do so easily.
We can't afford not to.
No.
So we can't just say, oh, I'm an accountant and tax advisor.
Exactly.
We have to say why. But why? Why are you doing it? What's the purpose? What's the... But that's the lovely stuff again, isn't it?
Yeah.
Now, obviously, you talk about the human business, and we've got the book here as well today in terms of, and all this is about how to love your customer so that they continue to buy from you, I guess, and to love you back.
Yeah.
What does the human business really mean?
Well, we touched on this connection between customers and the organisation earlier. In all the years I've been working in corporate and as a consultant, the mismatch that I've noticed is this disconnect between what's going on in marketing and the promise and what's happening in customer service. Sure. And so the human business book is really about trying to solve that problem. And what I've noticed in the projects that I've done over the years is that if we develop brand strategy, to use more marketing jargon, off the back of what we're like at our best in the culture, the best behaviours, you actually have something that's really coherent. So when it then arrives in customer service, it all lines up. Yes. Does that make sense?
It does.
Get clear on your culture, your values, your behaviours. What do you believe in? What do you stand for? How do you want to behave? How do you want all your people to behave? And then create a brand, develop the brand that reflects that culture, because then it's going to be consistent. So then when you have customer service and you're training those people, you're writing those letters, those emails, the web chats, you're going to have much more consistency between the promise, between what you said and what you deliver. And that's where I think customer experience falls down all the time, because there's a disconnect between what you say and what you do.
Yes, and I guess people will always buy from people. There is something that just kind of entered my mind, though, in terms of people are now using, instead of doing a Google search for a lawn provider, make my lawn beautiful.
Yeah.
What about when AI starts to make these decisions for us?
Yeah, it's really interesting. And funnily enough, my lawn care friend is being found through AI search.
Okay.
I actually got found last year through AI search for the first time, and it was quite a surprise. Like, how did that happen? I think it must be because I wrote a book, and so I have a lot of words out there in the wild. So yes, it is affecting, the old, well, it's not that old, is it? But search engine optimization, SEO, which has been the way that we get high in search rankings for the last 20 years, say, is going to change. And the way that we write websites is going to change. So for years, as a copywriter, I've been encouraging clients to get tighter and tighter and tighter, write as little as possible to get the point across. Yeah. But the thing is that AI can write as much copy as you like, as in seconds. And what AI wants in order to make a recommendation is it actually wants detail. So I think you've got an interesting tension emerging where you actually need a volume of content for AI to write. You still need messaging for humans to be able to relate to, and you need to balance the two things. And so if we take this even further to what's probably coming down the line, if you buy everything through AI, if you ask your buying agent or your shopping agent, I have a shopping agent as well, which I love because I like. It helps me do my research, and I'm a bit of a researcher. So if my research is going off and reading stuff, is there a point at which the AI does all the shopping? And when we're at the point at which we can trust the security of agents to do the research, to come back with options and say, yes, go and buy it because it's got your credit card, which you can do now. Although I wouldn't trust my credit card with an AI that's got open web access. That's a whole different SEO, and I would not recommend it yet. But that is coming, and at that point, you may not even look at a website.
No.
The AI will present information that it's digested from your website and make the recommendations. You might scan through, but actually you may never look at the website. So how do you optimize your rankings in that world? It's a new discipline that's emerging.
That's really interesting, isn't it? And then it's then also going, I guess that's if you're using AI yourself and you've built so much utilising that and books, all that kind of element.
Again, if you're in business, you want to be shopping with AI to see how AI is affecting search so that you have a sense for how it's going to affect your own business.
But that is, especially when the recommendation comes up, because then it's going, well, how is it judging? How is it judging? But I guess it will know your values enough that it will go, this organisation is a good fit for you, and I will recommend it because it's very clear on its values, its purpose, its why, and you're passionate about that as well. Which is why you have
to train it.
Yeah.
So if you have in mind training the AI to do the things that you want, I think that gives you a different mindset, doesn't it, to how you're going to work with it. And that will just give you compounding benefits, compounding quality from the AI work that you're doing.
And why do businesses tend to drift away from being human, do you think? That's a question.
That's a very big question.
Sorry.
That's a very big question. I think, so there's a couple of things going on. So there's professional jargon. And there's business speak. Are probably two things to highlight. So in accountancy, in marketing, you language pops up. So for example, for my accounting, I use Free Agent.
Yep.
And Free Agent's objective is to simplify the language so that non-accountant solopreneurs and small businesses can relate to it. So instead of talking about reconciling the bank. And so if an accountant will talk about reconciliation, but ordinary people don't know what reconciliation is. So do you want your clients to learn what reconciliation is, or do you say explaining transactions? So Free Agents say explaining transactions. So they've consciously gone and said, well, we're going to try and not use the industry jargon. We're going to help make it accessible to more people. So they're probably not talking to accountants, but they are talking to people who, like me, who are not accountants. So there's industry speak, and that tends to become heavier and heavier and heavier over years, decades, generations. And what that language does is it's a protectionism in a way. If only I can understand a situation in a level of detail that means we can make good decisions, I protect my business. If you can understand it, little business owner, you don't need me. So I'm going to hold on to that jargon and I'm going to keep using it because it makes me feel important. It makes me look valuable.
Yes.
And I can charge more money.
Yes.
So there's a lot of that going on.
Yeah.
But the other part of it is organizations just generate their own jargon, their own acronyms, their own shortcuts, just in the day-to-day of doing business. It's normal. Communities, as they become more larger and more complex, they use shortcuts because it makes communication easier. The problem is that somebody new coming into the organization doesn't know what those words mean.
Yeah.
And they're lost. So when I joined Boots, the chemist, 24 years ago, people kept talking about the stores.
Okay.
And after a few weeks, I can feel the shame when I mention this. Eventually I said, so I was imagining the stores are like a warehouse.
Got you, rather than the shops.
And I said in a meeting with some quite senior people, but where are the stores?
It's so interesting though, isn't it? Because we use jargon without realising.
Yeah.
And when you know, it's obvious. But I guess that's I love the ask the stupid question, even if you know it yourself, because it's almost then going, so actually, what is an LLM? It's a Claude, it's a ChatGPT, it's that kind of element. And it's
so easy to, and I'm already, AI is still new and I'm already slipping into the jargon.
But you won't be able to help it because it's just so natural and that's your...
And you forget what you don't know. And so this is the art, I think, is finding ways to explain to people who don't know and understanding the level of terminology they're going to understand so you can relate to them on their level.
Yeah.
Which has always been my human relation thing.
Absolutely love that. Before we go... It's something I've asked everybody. What's one line that you say to yourself when things get tough? Because boy, being a business owner, it can be tough.
It certainly can. Frequently.
It can.
Yeah. I don't know if I have one.
No.
I've so another AI or another app that I use is called Notion, and I have a Notion agent and Notion AI. And every time it answers something, it puts a little quote.
Okay.
Hemingway or whatever. And I really dislike those things.
Yeah.
I don't know why.
That's absolutely okay.
My sort of central value is love of learning. If I'm learning, I'm thriving, which is why I kind of think I'll never retire because when I'm working, I'm learning. Every project presents something new. So for me, it's about learning and getting into a project and going, I've got to make sure I'm learning. I grew a bigger business, until about 10 years ago, and it made me poorer and stressed and unhappy. And what I realised is that I think I promoted myself beyond my level of competence into management.
Okay.
And I actually disconnected myself from the work that I truly love, which is doing the work. I like doing the work and working with people, understanding what they need and creating solutions that solve problems for them.
That's such a trap. It's such a trap as in we become an amazing technician at what we do. And actually the leadership side isn't the bit that people were ever interested in. And you just become clumbered by a business. And it's understanding the what, the why, so for you, yours is that constant learning, that evolving yourself. Yeah. And you're not able to do that now. Well, I guess you could in a leadership role. You could find different things. But if it's the actual problem that the client's got, you're not going to be delivering that at the leadership level.
And actually,
that's so important.
So when I'm busy with clients, I'm learning all the time.
Yeah.
When I have quiet periods, which we all do in business, that's when the learning can drop off. So that's when I try and throw myself into new business. So those are times of challenge when I'm not making as much money or not making any money. And we've all been through that. And actually, it was one of those periods that pushed me into learning AI thoroughly.
Okay. So you actually took the moment of going, okay, I've got a bit of a famine here. Yeah. I'm going to learn.
Which is why I recognise, because previously, I was contracting in a head of marketing role before, insanely, just doing really long hours, really pushing, delivering, no time to learn AI. When that came to an end, it's like, right, now I'm going to do it. Did some training, did a load of experimentation, did the courses, and that took me, that's taken me into a different curve.
Next curve. Oh, and I think that's a perfect summary to go. We tell or we hear as business owners to grow, to scale, to optimize, but actually there's this clear need to connect to, it's connection, it's human, it's learning, it's clarity, it's identity, it's all that kind of side of things. So, yeah.
That's the joy of business for me.
Isn't it?
It's infinitely creative. We're constantly solving problems, aren't we? When we build a business. For me, it's almost the purest form of existence. You can't sleep in business. You've got to be constantly pushing, constantly learning, and constantly creating. When I started as a copywriter, it wasn't the writing itself that was the most creative. It was, how am I going to work? How am I going to make this project work? How am I going to do it? And I still get that thrill with every new project. Why would I stop?
That's incredible. Ben, I think this is such an important conversation. I think I could talk to you all day because there is such a lot of noise about AI at the moment and a lot of pressure to keep up.
Yeah.
But what I keep coming back to is about building something that's meaningful, something that's human, something that connects, something that lasts. Because in a world where things can be automated, being human is even more important.
Absolutely.
Ben, thank you so much for joining
You're
me.
most
I've
welcome.
absolutely taken so much out of this conversation.
It's been an absolute pleasure. Really
Thank
enjoyed
you.
it.